Weiss molecular field theory, which can be able to explain the ferromagnetic behavior of materials. And according to Weiss molecular field theory, internal molecular field is responsible for the spontaneous magnetization in the ferromagnetic material. So there are some orbitals and then some shells are available. In this, many unbalanced spins of different electrons will interact, and the electron belongs to one shell may interact with the neighboring electron which is there in the for the second atom. These interactions are called as exchange interactions, and the exchange interactions according to quantum theory can be expressed by a quantum mechanical parameter exchange integral J. And these interactions occur only in materials like iron, cobalt, nickel, etc. And if Si and Sj represents the spins of ith and jth electrons, making an angle pi of ij, that is it's an interaction between the spins of ith and jth electrons, then the internal energy E can be written as minus 2j sigma Si Sj cos pi ij. So this is the deciding factor, so that it exhibits spontaneous magnetization. And also the exchange integral, it is a function of A by R, where A is interatomic spacing and R is the unfilled shell radius. If you plot a graph taking A by R along x-axis, exchange integral along y-axis, you can observe that for all these materials, iron, cobalt, nickel, etc., this exchange integral, this relation is positive. That's why they exhibit spontaneous magnetization. And also we have derived an expression for the susceptibility and Curie-Weiss law in ferromagnetic material. Chi is equal to C by T minus Tc. By using Langevins theory of paramagnetism, you can write an expression for M, and chi is M by H. And by rearranging the terms, finally you can write that chi is equal to C by T minus Tc, which is called as Curie-Weiss law, where C is the Curie constant, Tc is the Curie temperature. So we have stopped here. And also the same Weiss, again he has proposed domain theory, again to explain the properties of ferromagnetic materials. So now you take the heading Weiss domain theory. Weiss domain theory. Is this visible presentation, students?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Domain theory of ferromagnetism. So Weiss proposed the concept of domains to explain the ferromagnetic behavior of materials and also the magnetic hysteresis. So the previous one, it is based on quantum theory, and the domain theory is purely based on the classical concept, classical theory. And the same was again proposed by Weiss in order to explain the phenomena of ferromagnetic behavior of materials and also the magnetic hysteresis. So according to this domain theory, when you take a ferromagnetic material, in ferromagnetic material, the electrons of neighboring atoms with their magnetic moments align themselves in small regions. You see in the figure, domains align in different regions. In the first figure in the left side, you can see some domains, they orient from top to bottom, some from right to left, someone from bottom to top, and different directions like that. In the same region, if you take one region, within the region, the magnetic moments are aligned in one particular direction. So these small atomic regions, these are called as magnetic domains, or in simply, they are called as domains. So according to Weiss theory of ferromagnetism, domain theory of ferromagnetism, in ferromagnetic materials, the electrons of neighboring atoms, each electron corresponding to a certain spin, because already we have discussed in ferromagnetic materials, spin of the electron is very crucial for deciding the magnetic behavior. It is very important. So the spins of electrons of neighboring atoms, so these spins aligned in single direction, so that in that particular region they possess certain magnetic moment. Like that, it may consist of number of regions, and these small atomic regions, these are called as domains. And generally, each domain, it consists of 10 to the power of 23 atoms. So this is the magnitude. In each domain, Approximately it consists of 10 to the power of 23 atoms, and these are separated by a thin region which is called as domain wall. So the boundaries you can see here represented with the black one. So this is called as domain wall. So each domain region is again surrounded by a small thin region which is called as domain wall. So up to this, the magnetic moment is in one direction. Here in the second domain, it is from right to left, like the different orientations are there. And I mean to say, in the absence of the field, all these domains, they are in random alignment, so that the net magnetization, because each domain region will be contributing for certain magnetic moment, but because of the randomness of all these magnetic domains, in the absence of the field, the net magnetization is zero. It will not exhibit any spontaneous magnetization. So this is in the absence of the field. But when the ferromagnetic material is subjected to external magnetic field, then slowly these domain walls, it rearrange themselves so that the magnetic moments, you can see all they aligned in the direction of the applied field. B is the applied field. So all these magnetic moments in the direction of the field, giving rise to strong magnetic magnetization values, and it behaves as a strong ferromagnetic material, permanent magnet. This is B's domain theory. Write down. B's proposed the concept of domains. B's proposed the concept of domains to explain the ferromagnetic behavior of materials. To explain the ferromagnetic behavior of materials and hysteresis. In ferromagnetic materials, the electrons of neighboring atoms align themselves. In ferromagnetic materials, the electrons of neighboring atoms align themselves in small atomic regions. In small atomic regions called as domains. In small atomic regions called as domains. Each domain consists of 10 to the power of 23 atoms. And is separated by a thin region called domain wall. Separated by a thin region called domain wall. And you take this figure also. In the absence of the field, you indicate domain regions and the magnetic moments are randomly oriented. In the presence of the field, all they take alignment in the direction of the field. Just to take the diagram. Shall I proceed, boys? Somebody respond? Yes? No one is there?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Boys?
sir.
Okay. And you can say that each domain acts as a single magnetic dipole, because in that same region, in the same atomic region, all the magnetic moments are in one direction, aligned in one direction, giving rise to net magnetization. So you can assume that each domain acts as a single magnetic dipole. So in the absence of the field, the domains are aligned randomly, and thus the net magnetization is zero. Note on these 2 points also. You can see the domain structure can be like this. So each region, you can assume it is a magnetic dipole, and they are randomly oriented. So net magnetization is zero. Each domain acts as a single magnetic dipole. Each domain acts as a single magnetic dipole. In the absence of the field, the domains are randomly aligned. The domains are aligned randomly or randomly aligned, and the net magnetization is zero. So in the absence of the field, there is no magnetization. If you want, you take this diagram also. Each region, domain region, can be represented with a single dipole because all magnetic moments are aligned in one particular direction. So when magnetic field is applied, then domains, all these domains, before a magnetic field, they are randomly oriented, but in the presence of the field, they align, domains tend to align themselves with the field direction. This results for the large magnetization in the material. So whenever a ferromagnet is subjected to external magnetic field, then before that all are randomly aligned, but now they start aligning in the direction of the field, and finally after some time all aligned in the direction of the field, giving rise to large magnetization values. And when it is depending on temperature, the magnetization depends on temperature, ferromagnetic behavior. So whenever the temperature increases at a temperature called Curie temperature Tc, again these magnetic domains, they take random orientation, the domain structure breaks down, and your ferromagnet becomes a paramagnetic material. If you want to write these points also, in the presence of the field, the domains start aligning themselves. In the presence of the field, the domains start align themselves with the field direction. With field direction. This results large magnetization values in the material. This results large magnetization values in the material. Next, write down ferromagnetic behavior depends on temperature. Ferromagnetic behavior depends on temperature. When temperature increases at Curie temperature, when temperature increases at Curie temperature, again the spins become random. The spins become random. Domain structure breaks down. Domain structure breaks down. Thus, a ferromagnet becomes paramagnet at Curie temperature. Thus, a ferromagnet becomes paramagnet at Curie temperature. And in the bottom, you can see the diagrams. So a ferromagnetic material in the presence of the field or in the absence of the field, when it is photographed at the nanoscale, you can see the different regions. One is in advanced materials. You can find some dots initially. You can call it as one domain region and colored one like that. There are different variations you can find. And also in the right side diagram also, the shaded portions are domain regions. So suppose it is shaded with green. In that all electrons, they have their magnetization in one particular direction, giving rise to some net magnetization represented in terms of this green color. Similarly, you have a wide range of colors, each representing a atomic domain, magnetic domain, which is taken at nanoscale. Only for understanding sake, you can see these figures. So when it is photographed at the nanoscale, what is nano? Unit. Nano means 10 to the power of Somebody tell.
-9.
-9. So whenever it is photographed at this scale, you can find this clear magnetic domain regions. So this is Wies domain theory. So according to Wies domain theory, the electrons in the neighboring atoms, they mutually interact with each other in small atomic regions known as domains, which are called as magnetic domains. And generally each domain, it consists of 10 to the power of 23 atoms with their magnetic moments aligned in one direction, and they are separated by small thin regions known as domain walls. So because the magnetization is aligned in one direction, each magnetic domain can be taken as one magnetic dipole. In the absence of the field, all these domains, magnetic dipoles, they take random orientation, resulting for zero magnetization. But whenever it is subjected to external magnetic field, then slowly these domains align in the direction of the field, so that contributing for large magnetization in the material. It depends on temperature. And when the temperature rises at a temperature called Curie temperature, again these magnetic dipoles, they align randomly, so net magnetization becomes zero. Magnetic domain structure breaks down. A ferromagnet becomes a paramagnet at Curie temperature, and they follow Curie waves law given by chi is equal to C by T minus Tc, where C is Curie constant and Tc is Curie temperature. Chi is the susceptibility. So this is Wies domain theory. The next one is ferromagnetic hysteresis or magnetic hysteresis. All of you please take this diagram. I'll give 2 to 3 minutes. This is also a very important concept, and only this diagram, and I'll explain that. You should prepare notes for this by referring textbook. In the presentation, I am not giving the notes because I will explain what actually you should prepare notes. If you want, you can write running notes. I'll explain twice. Before that, you take the heading ferromagnetic hysteresis, and you take down this diagram. Is this diagram is visible, students?
Visible, sir.
Yes, please take this. Along x-axis, H is taken. In this figure, along y-axis, M is taken. In some books, B is taken. B and M are both are related. M is magnetization, B is magnetic induction. But here you take B, capital B, magnetic induction, instead of M. It is typed M only, but you take it as B. Note down this again. Take the figure. I'll wait 1 to 2 minutes. Take the red dotted line also. That is actually the initial line. Did you copy? Boys? Shall I wait? Girls?
Completed, sir.
Okay. If you want, otherwise you take a screenshot. First listen carefully, because only this diagram will explain. There is no notes for this in the PPT. You should prepare this. This is similar to ferroelectricity, what we have studied in dielectric materials. The same here, their electric field, here it is a magnetic field. So magnetic hysteresis, it is a important property or a special property of a ferromagnetic material. The graph that represents the variation of magnetic flux density B of a ferromagnet with the applied magnetic field is called as hysteresis curve, and the phenomena is called as magnetic hysteresis. So the graph that represents the variation of magnetic flux density with applied field of a ferromagnet is called as magnetic hysteresis. So you take a ferromagnetic material initially. So in a ferromagnetic material, in the absence of the field initially, as we discussed, all the magnetic dipoles are available. They take random orientation, causing zero magnetization. So net magnetization is zero. So whenever this ferromagnetic material is subjected to external electric field H, so you apply external magnetic field along positive x-axis for a ferromagnetic material. Initially, the magnetization, it starts very slowly. That means slowly the magnetic dipoles, they try to align in the direction of the field. But as the field increases, then what happens? This magnetization increases. More number of magnetic dipoles, they align in the direction of the field. Like that, this magnetization increases, and after some time, it reaches a maximum value represented by a point P. So at point P, you can see all the magnetic dipoles, they align in the direction of the field, and which is called as saturated magnetization. So here, almost all magnetic dipoles present in the given ferromagnetic material, they align in the direction of the field, giving rise to large magnetization values, which is called as saturated magnetization. We represented by MS, or it is represented by BS. Both you can take, and here it is the saturation value. B or M further will not increase even you increase the applied field. Whenever you further, after getting saturation, even you apply certain magnetic field, this magnetization will not take place. It dissipated in the form of heat, and this represents the saturated magnetization. Now, if you decrease the field, then what happens? It is the relation between B and H is a non-linear relation. If it is a linear relation, if you increase, it takes some path. If you decrease, if it retraces the same path and goes to zero value, then it is called as a linear behavior. But here for a ferromagnetic material, this relation is a non-linear relation. So after getting saturated magnetization, if you decrease the field, then the magnetization, it takes some another path. You can see it is taking this black in this direction. It is red one is the original path. It gets saturated. Then if you start decreasing the field, then the magnetization, it takes some value like that. It comes down, and it reaches a value MR. You can see here, even for zero applied field. So at this point, the applied field becomes zero. Even though the applied field becomes zero, there exists some magnetization, which is called as residual magnetization or magnetic remittance. So this explains the spontaneous magnetization, because spontaneous magnetization is the special feature of a ferromagnetic material. Even though the applied field is zero, there are some magnetic moments align in one direction, giving rise to some magnetic behavior for the material. So here zero applied field is zero, even though some residual is left here. MR represents that one, some magnetization is present in the material, which that's why the material exhibits a spontaneous magnetization. So still, if you further decrease the applied field in the opposite direction, then what happens? At point known as HC minus HC, all these dipoles, it is represented in this circle, they take random orientation. So in the residual magnetization is present in the material, even for zero applied field. If you change the dipole, decrease further, then what happens? At a value known as minus HC, all these remaining magnetic dipoles, they take random orientation, and a material loses its ferromagnetism completely, and it behaves as a paramagnetic material. This point is represented as R, and the value of the field is HC, which is called as coercive field. So the negative field, the field applied to a ferromagnet so that it becomes a paramagnet, is called as coercive field. Here the magnetization becomes zero and a ferromagnet becomes paramagnet. Next, if you in the same if you further increase the field in the opposite direction, then what happens? Again, at HC, all the magnetic dipoles are randomly oriented. Now they start again align in the direction of the field, so that it comes down. Again, it reaches a point S. So in this direction, third quadrant also, you can get a saturated magnetization. Once you get the saturated magnetization, if you decrease the field, then what happens? Again, it is a nonlinear relation. It takes some another path, and here again you will be getting a residual magnetization even for reverse applied field. In this way, it completes the loop. Like that, you may get a series of loops, which is called as magnetic hysteresis. So this is a nonlinear behavior of a magnetic flux density with applied magnetic field, represented by a curve, is called as hysteresis curve. So once again, I will explain. A ferromagnetic material behaves or exhibits a property which is called as magnetic hysteresis. The graph that represents the variation of magnetic flux density B or M with applied magnetic field H is called as magnetic hysteresis curve, and the phenomena is called as hysteresis. When a ferromagnet is subjected to external magnetic field, initially the magnetic movement is very slow. Then after a certain value reaches for the applied field, this speeds up, and all the magnetic dipoles, they align in the direction of the field. After some time, they get saturated. All magnetic dipoles align in the direction of the field, giving rise to large values of magnetization for the material, which is called as saturated magnetization, represented by point P, and it is called as saturated magnetization. This further will not increase even you increase the applied field. Now, when you decrease the field, then it will not retrace its original path. It takes some another path, because this relation is a non-linear. So as you decrease, even for zero applied field, you can observe some residual magnetization is present in the material, represented by MR at point Q. This explains the spontaneous magnetic behavior for a given ferromagnetic material. Even for zero applied field, some magnetization, some magnetic dipoles are aligned in one particular direction, giving rise to magnetization for the material. If you further decrease the field, then at a point known as minus HC, represented by point R, which is called as coercive field, this remaining magnetization, it becomes zero. All remaining magnetic dipoles, they take random orientation, and net magnetization becomes zero. A ferromagnet becomes a paramagnetic material. So the value of the applied field, so that a ferromagnet becomes a paramagnet, is called as coercive field, and the phenomena is called as coercivity. If you change the direction of the field and again you start increasing the field, then magnetization grows in this direction, reaches a maximum value, which is called as a saturated magnetization in the third quadrant, and it gets saturated. Then if you decrease the field, then it will not retrace the original path. It takes some another path, so that it completes a loop, which is called as hysteresis loop, and the phenomena is called as magnetic hysteresis. So these are the points. So what is saturated magnetization? What is magnetic hysteresis? You should explain. Then what is saturated magnetization? Then residual magnetization and coercivity. All these, with these three definitions, with this diagram, you should explain what is magnetic hysteresis. Is it clear, students? Somebody respond?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You prepare notes for this. Okay. Small. Then you have 1 minute. Again, you have a small topic, which is types of ferromagnetic materials. Please note down types of ferromagnetic materials. and you write down here. It is not there in the PPT. Just you take the notes. I'll explain that first. Then it is very simple. Types of magnetic materials. Ferromagnetic materials are classified as, write down. Ferromagnetic materials are classified as 1. Soft magnetic materials. Soft magnetic materials. And the second one, hard magnetic materials. Soft magnetic materials. And the second one, hard magnetic materials. First one, soft magnetic materials. Soft magnetic materials. First, I'll explain this. Then, is this visible? Soft and hard magnetic materials?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Soft magnetic materials are the materials which can be easily magnetized, and hard magnetic materials which cannot be easily magnetized. So this is the difference. So that means even for small values of applied field, they can be magnetized. If you remove the field immediately, they demagnetize. These are soft magnetic materials. They respond very quickly. Hard magnetic materials are the materials which cannot be easily magnetized or demagnetized. And in the soft magnetic materials, it can be produced by heating and slow cooling. So you apply certain heat and slow cooling, you can magnetize it. And here in the hard magnetic material, by heating or sudden cooling, you can change the property. And in soft magnetic materials, the domain wall move easily and requires a small value of H for magnetization. I mean to say that even for small value of applied field, the domain wall structure, if they align in the direction of the field, giving rise to magnetization. In hard magnetic materials, for small values, it will not give any response. The domain wall does not move easily and require large value of applied field, so that it gives magnetization behavior. And if you take soft magnetic material, hysteresis loop area is very small, and susceptibility and permeability values are very high. So it has a small hysteresis loop area, soft magnetic material, and they readily accept the magnetic lines of force, so that they give magnetic induction. So even susceptibility and permeability values are very high. They readily accept all these magnetic lines of force. Whereas in hard magnetic materials, the hysteresis loop area is very large. So the susceptibility and permeability values are very small for these values, because it takes some time, so that only slowly it gets magnetization. That's why they are called as hard magnetic materials. Retentivity and coercivity are small for this. That means coercivity means the value of the applied field where a ferromagnet becomes ferromagnet. Even for the small value of reverse field, a soft magnetic material can be demagnetized. But for hard magnetic material, large field is required, so that it loses its magnetization. That means once it is magnetized, then it takes much time. Even you apply reverse field, for a large value of reverse field only, it will be demagnetized. And if you take a soft magnetic material, the low eddy current loss. So you know that electric field and magnetic field both are internally linked. So whenever there is a magnetic field, it produces current. And according to Ampere's law, any current carrying conductor produces magnetic field around it. So whenever a ferromagnet is subjected to external magnetic field, it produces some current. So here in this case, the eddy current is low for these materials, because soft magnetic materials having very high resistivity, whereas hard magnetic material, the loss is very high, heavy, because the resistivity is very small. If resistance is more, there is no electric current. If resistance is less, there will be high current. So in soft magnetic materials, because of their high resistance, the eddy current loss is small, whereas in hard magnetic materials, because of low resistance values, the eddy current loss is high for these materials. And in soft magnetic materials, they are purified form, you can say. No impurities and defects are present in soft magnetic materials, whereas impurities or defects present in hard magnetic materials. And examples are given: iron silicon alloy, ferrous nickel alloy, ferrites, garnets. All these are examples of soft magnetic materials. And hard magnetic materials: aluminum, nickel, cobalt alloy, chromium steel alloy, tungsten steel alloy, carbon steel. All these are typical examples of hard magnetic materials. And soft magnetic materials generally are used in electromagnets, computer data storage, transformer cores, etc. Whereas hard magnetic materials, they can be used for making for permanent magnets, and they are used in as DC magnets. So this is the classification of magnetic materials as soft and hard magnetic materials. So ferromagnetic materials, they are classified as soft and hard magnetic materials. So soft magnetic materials, these materials are which can be easily magnetized or demagnetized. And hard magnetic materials, exactly opposite. If you know one properties of one, so the exact opposite are hard magnetic materials. So they have small hysteresis loop area. Hard magnetic materials, large hysteresis loop area, and the susceptibility and permeability values are high for soft magnetic material. They readily accept the magnetic lines of force. But hard magnetic materials, after some time, for high values of applied field only, they respond, so that the susceptibility and permeability values are small, and the coercivity is very small. Retentivity and coercivity very small. Even for small values of applied field, you can magnetize soft magnetic material. Even the small value of reverse field, you can demagnetize a soft magnetic material. But this is not the case for hard magnetic material. The retentivity and coercivity are very high for these materials, and because of high resistivity, they have low eddy current loss. Soft magnetic materials, because of low resistivity, they have high eddy current loss. And impurities are not there in soft magnetic materials. Impurities are present in hard magnetic materials. So examples for making electromagnets, computer data storage, generally the soft magnetic materials are used. And these for making permanent magnets and DC magnets, these hard magnetic materials are used. So this is the difference or classification of soft and hard magnetic materials in a ferromagnetic substance. And one small topic is there, that is ferrites. So in the classification, 1 to 2 minutes I'll take. In the classification of magnetic materials itself, we have discussed there are 5 types of magnetic materials: diamagnetic, paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, anti-ferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetic materials. So these are ferrites. They come under these ferrimagnetic materials. And ferrites or ferrimagnetic materials are the modified structure of iron without carbon. So these come under ferrimagnetic material. A ferrimagnetic material is the material in which the magnetic moments are anti-parallel but with different magnitude. So because of the difference in magnitude, they possess relatively positive susceptibility values, and they allow the magnetic lines of force. So these ferrites or ferrimagnetic materials, these are modified structures of iron without carbon. So carbon is not present, and in ferrites, the spins of adjacent ions in the presence of magnetic field are opposite directions with different magnitudes. We have discussed in ferrimagnetic materials. Here you can see in the diagram ferrite cables, nuts and bolts, all these made up of these ferrite materials. They have large, wonderful, advanced magnetic features. Because of that, in the construction, in the fabrication of robots and different electronic accessories, these ferrites are used. So the properties of ferrites are: the ferrites are made from ceramic ferromagnetic compounds, ceramic materials, and they have low tensile strength, and it is brittle and soft. So this is the nature of a ferrite material. It is brittle, at the same time it is also soft. In these materials, all valence electrons are tied up by the ionic bonding, and these are bad conductors with high resistivity. So you can call them as soft magnetic materials. The resistivity is of the order of 10 to the power of 11 meters, and meter ohms. And ferrites have low eddy current loss and low hysteresis loss because they come under soft magnetic materials. What are the properties of soft magnetic materials can be applicable to these ferrites, and they have low eddy current loss and low hysteresis loss. And the general formula of ferrites is X2 plus Fu2 3 plus O4. This is the structure. So X may be a divalent metal such as magnesium, nickel, manganese, zinc, etc. And these ferrites, they are manufactured by powder metallurgical processes by mixing, compacting, and then sintering at high temperatures, followed by age hardening in magnetic materials. So this is the phenomena. The different elements like iron and divalent metal, generally they are taken in the powder form, and by standard techniques they can be mixed at a different high temperature. Again, they can be sintered at very high temperature, and finally thin films or thin layers of these ferrite materials can be manufactured, and they can be used for different applications. So ferrites, they are the ferrimagnetic materials. They come under ferrimagnetic materials in which the magnetic spins are anti-parallel with a difference in magnitude. So the difference in magnitude will count for the magnetization. So they show relatively positive susceptibility values, and the most of the properties are similar to the soft magnetic materials. So they can be easily magnetized or demagnetized, and they have small hysteresis loop area. Because of that, the hysteresis loss is very small. They have large values of permeability and susceptibility, and they have small values of coercivity. Even for small reverse field, it loses its magnetization. And because of high resistivity of the order 10 to the power of 11 ohm meter, they can be, and the eddy current loss is small for these materials. And the structure is X2 plus Fe2 3 plus and O4. This is the basic structure where X is the divalent metal. You can replace with magnesium, nickel, manganese, etc. And different elements are taken in different in the powder form. They are mixed by standard techniques, and they can be under the treatment of high temperature when high heat flow is there, so that rearranging of the physical structure takes place. And you can find the layers or rods of this. You can prepare ferrite materials, and there are many applications of these ferrites. So ferrites are used to produce ultrasonic waves in a magnetostriction method. Ferroids are also used in audio and video transformers, and ferrite rods are used in radio receivers to increase the sensitivity. There are many electric and electronic applications of these ferrites, and they are widely used in non-reciprocal microwave devices such as gyrator, circulator, and isolator. So there are many in electromagnetic devices, and also in electronic devices. The applications of ferrites are very wide. So this is a small notes on ferrites you should represent. Again, ferrites are classified into two different types: spinal structure ferrites and anti-spinal structure ferrites. Only for understanding sake, you can take this, and these are the properties of ferrites. So with this sense, so in this in the today's session, we have discussed the first one, Wies domain theory, and after Wies domain theory, magnetic hysteresis we have discussed, and in the hysteresis, what actually the magnetic hysteresis, and what is magnetic remittance, residual field, saturated field, and coercive field we have discussed. Then classification of ferromagnetic materials as soft magnetic materials and hard magnetic materials also we have discussed. Then finally, a special class of soft magnetic materials which are ferrites. This is only descriptive. There is nothing concept in that, in soft and hard magnetic materials, because you should remember what are the properties of soft magnetic materials and hard magnetic materials, that we have discussed. And finally, the properties of ferrites. What is ferrite structure? They come under ferrimagnetic materials, and how the structure of a ferrite and the properties of ferrite is there. Then finally, few applications of ferrites we have discussed in the today's session. So in this sense, this chapter is completed. In the next class, that is on Tuesday, I will start a new chapter, that is superconductivity. Meanwhile, I'll fine tune this PowerPoint presentation. I will upload so that You can go through. If you have any doubts, we can interact. And probably tomorrow or Monday, I'll upload the marks, the sessional marks. All of you have done well. Very less got below 15 because it is online. Probably second internal we are planning for offline. We'll see where it sinks or not. So I'll stop here. Next, which class you have, students?
Indian
IC,
Constitution.
sir. IC.
Okay. So give me attendance. 1 minute.